I do hope you're starting to get into the swing of how this is all going to work and that you're navigating your way around Milo well. This week we're going to hone in on the importance of communications. Communications between, for example, you and your staff and contractors, you and your suppliers, you and your customers. These are all very closely related to some of the other units you're going to be studying this year in your associate degree in agribusiness. In human resource management, for example, you'll learn much more about communications with staff and contractors, particularly through formal mechanisms like job descriptions and performance review processes. In the agribusiness marketing unit later in the year, you'll learn about the importance of communications with your customers and how to ensure your communications efforts are effective in winning and helping to keep customers. So for this topic within the agribusiness management unit, we're going to boil down the subject of communications into its fundamentals. Firstly, and most importantly, we're going to talk about face-to-face or interpersonal communications and the art of listening, because this underpins every conversation you'll have with your colleagues, bosses, employees, suppliers, contractors, advisors, service providers, and your customers and clients. Secondly, we'll talk about the importance of the intent or reason for your communications, because this is fundamental to knowing when different forms and styles of communication are appropriate. Regardless of who you're talking with or the purpose of the conversation, there are three fundamental things that you need to remember. One is that over 90% of interpersonal communications is non-verbal. Second is you get roughly 7 seconds to make a good first impression. And the third is that the message heard is the message received. Listening is more important than speaking is the last one. Let's explore these in a bit more detail. Firstly, the point that over 90% of face-to-face communications is non-verbal. Your body language, the expression on your face, your eye contact, what you're doing with your hands, your stance, and how much you move around while you speak says more than what's coming out of your mouth in the form of words. If you're engaged, present, have an open stance, maintain eye contact, and nod your head occasionally, the person you're conversing with is much more likely to A, pay attention, B, really listen to what you have to say, and C, understand what you're saying. The second point is that you get about 7 seconds to make a first impression. When you meet someone for the first time, your primal brain is assessing in milliseconds, is that person a friend or foe? Do I approach or avoid? Does this person have status and authority? These are human survival mechanisms. But in business and life, you can use them to your advantage if you pay attention to these key things. Adjust your attitude. Think about the situation you're entering and what kind of impression you want to make. Do you want to be businesslike, open, friendly? In some circumstances, for example, if you're heading into a difficult contract negotiation, you may want to have a more authoritative and aloof attitude, but that would be totally inappropriate if you're going into a meeting with prospective customers or an employee. Straighten your posture. Posture is a non-verbal cue for power and status. If you want to appear more powerful and authoritative, stand up tall and square up your shoulders. Smile. A smile says, I'm friendly and approachable. Make eye contact. This indicates openness and interest. Shake hands. This is an instantly successful way of quickly establishing rapport, in most Western cultures anyway. Lean in slightly. By leaning slightly towards the other person, it shows you're interested and engaged. However, when applying these tips, be ever mindful of the other person's personal space and cultural sensitivities. If you're too engaging, too loud, move too much into other people's personal space, you can very quickly lose rapport and respect. The third key point is that the message heard is the message received. It doesn't matter what you think you've said. If the person or people you're speaking with didn't understand that message or it was unclear, they're not going to understand or remember what you said. Because we all have different attitudes, values and social norms of behaviour, we interpret both non-verbal and verbal cues in our communications differently. The meaning behind the message is not always directly apparent. As we get to know people better and understand their values and even their idiosyncrasies, we learn to interpret what they're saying through that filter. The more we talk to people and the more we listen to what they are really saying, the greater the chance of there being a shared meaning between us. Finally, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Listening is far more important than speaking. These fundamentals underpin every conversation you have with other people, regardless of whether they are casual conversations, getting to know your work colleagues, or whether you are having a difficult conversation with someone about, for example, their work not being done on time, or to the standard you expect. This is quite a difficult subject to teach through a recorded lecture. That's a bit ironic really, but it is what it is, so we have to make the most of any opportunities we get when we are present with each other to practice some of the things that we are learning in this lecture. I'd like you to now go and watch a TED talk by Celeste Headley, a US-based journalist and radio and TV presenter and regular TED speaker. Her TED talk on ways to have better conversations highlights the points I've been talking about here in a very succinct and entertaining talk. Her 10 tips for better conversations that she presents here are the tips that you can apply in all conversations, whether personal or business related.